Everybody. I hope that everyone is doing well on this Wednesday. And I also appreciate you guys logging on. Shauna and I are kind of excited to see how these little series go. And so this series, this three-part series, is going to be on, as the title says, understanding just the basics of family engagement. And so it's going to be Ready Rosie applicable. And as we go through the three different times, I'll be sharing tips from Ready Rosie and how Ready Rosie supports that. But then also the third session in particular will be Ready Rosie heavy. But I will be talking about how Ready Rosie can support your family engagement as we go along. And so I think one of the reasons why I suggested family engagement to start with Shauna is that family engagement is critically important. And I think that we get so busy and so overwhelmed and so, doing 8 million things that we forget to look at family engagement in the whole big picture. Bigger than just using Ready Rosie or just using some other programs. So I want to kind of lay a foundation. And then if you are familiar with Ready Rosie, so if you also don't mind putting in the chat on a scale of 1 to 5, or if you just want to hold up a finger that represents your level of knowledge with Ready Rosie or comfort with Ready Rosie. 1 would be, this is your first year, you haven't really gotten it going yet. And 5 would be, you've been using it for however long the foundation stuff has been going on. Maybe you were using it before the foundation changed names. And you feel like you could be doing a session on Ready Rosie yourself. So let's just see so we have some 4s, a 1, a 2, a 1, a 3, a 3. Good. All righty, another 1. All right, so as we go through, I'm really going to encourage the 4s. Now you're thinking, ooh, I should have put another number in. But if you put a 4 in, or even a 3, as we go through these 3 sessions, and then when we do the one on social and emotional and the one on cultural diversity and stuff, if you think of something with Ready Rosie, or you've used Ready Rosie in a certain, way to support something that I'm saying, just unmute yourself or a small group, unmute yourself and share so that everybody can learn from each other. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And whoops, Shauna, will you let me share? Shauna always has a problem with sharing. I would have thought she had learned it by now to share, but all right.
You should be good to go. Sorry.
Okay, that is quite all right. Okay, so I'm going to share, excuse me, my screen here. Let me see here. Whoops, let me just want to share a different screen. Okay. So the first, what we're going to start out with in this session, now can y'all just see my slide and not my slide with my notes? Do you just see the Ready Rosie slide, or do you see the notes too?
Yeah, I just see the Ready
Okay,
Rosie slide.
Perfect. I'm kind of a little apprehensive every time I start a slideshow, because I was doing one a while ago and was probably 30 minutes into the presentation, and finally someone was brave and said, can you make that slide a little bigger? And I was sharing the wrong screen. So this first session today is going to be talking about kind of y'all's roles and parents' roles, and really even why we're focusing on family engagement, and why it's a federal mandate, and it's such a big part of Head Start. If you are connected to any kind of a public school, there's a federal, family engagement piece as well. And so why is family engagement so important? And everybody seems to be talking about it. So before we get started, I want you to just reflect on a family. Maybe it's a family you have this year. Maybe it's a family that you had, several years ago. But think about that family that was like, maybe not your favorite family, but they were the family that you thought, oh my gosh, if I could just clone them, if every family could be like the Fullenwiders, my teaching life would be perfect. What were some of the characteristics that were true of that family that was just, oh my gosh, they were just wonderful? So you can unmute yourself if you feel more comfortable putting in the chat. You can certainly do that. So what are some of the characteristics of those families that that immediately come to mind?
I would say that maybe when the family is willing to try, they want to try things that we suggest.
Okay, I love that you said just willing to try. You're not expecting them to do it perfectly, but they're just willing to try. Willing to help with school events and support teachers. Okay, so in addition to supporting their child, they are willing just to support with other things that are going on. Interested in their children. Stephanie said responsive, excited, willing to talk and share information. Good. Families who want to be engaged, no complaints about pay. You could just stop with no complaints, but no complaints about paying, good communication, non-picky eaters, non-nappers, feel like family. Okay, good. Willing to engage in visits. Well, I don't know any of those families, and I certainly don't know any of you all very, very well, if at all. But my guess is you have a relationship with those families. You've built a relationship somehow over time. You have built that relationship. The families that, in all honesty, you might say to yourself or your significant other, I can't have another family like the Fullenwiders. I just can't. I just can't. You probably don't have a relationship with that family through no fault of anyone. You just have not been able to connect with that family. And so I think that's important to remember as we reflect on all the things that we do to try to get families engaged, to reflect and think, do I have a relationship with that family? If no, then why and what can I do? Or is there anything I can do to try to start building that relationship? So that's what we're going to kind of be talking about today as we go through. So now, if you guys will humor me and just tell me, what are some of the types of family engagement things that you offer, either you yourself as a teacher through your classroom or through a program, but what are some of those things that you offer as family engagement?
Well, at the Learning Community Center in South Omaha, we do home visits. So we're engaging the family during those visits and encouraging the parent-child interactions. We have family days and they're coming up in November. So when the kids are off school, the school-age children and the infants and toddlers all come to the center for a day and activities. Then we have, so those are the days where the families, I guess, would be together.
All right, good. And Stephanie said monthly socializations, monthly books, home visits, library, summer reading program, participation in various community events. Good. Penny, home visits, literacy day at the park in the summer. Okay, good. And so when we're talking about family engagement, we're talking about all of those things, and even bigger than that, more than that. And I had a director tell me once, not through the foundation, so Shauna, don't worry, but I had a director tell me one time on a call, she said, I don't think we really need anything on family engagement. She said, because we have 70% of our families engaged and participating in things. And I said to her, well, that means there's 30% of parents who aren't participating. And so it's important to at least reflect on why. And so I always say that unless you have 100% of your families engaging, there's room for growth and there's certainly room for reflection. And so today, the main thing I want you to leave with is just a little bit of reflecting on your families, and I'll give you some specific things. Penny said, books sent home with video of the kids interacting with me during the reading of the book so they know the song tunes. Good. All right. So one of the reasons why family engagement is the buzzword now and has been for the last several years, why it is a federal mandate, why there's now federal monies to support family engagement programs, is because of the research that shows the benefit to the child, to the student. And so we know from research that when families are engaged, their children or child have better school readiness and attend more regularly. They have better social skills and behaviors. Now, that does not mean that they don't ever have behavior problems, because that child does not exist. But what it means is that more than likely, when they do have a behavioral issue, that parent is engaged and is ready to partner with you and is more readily to work with you to support that, getting that behavior turned around. They tend to have higher quality work habits and they're more task oriented compared to children whose parents are not participating in their child's education. And this research was specific for kindergarten, third graders. So it really benefits the younger kiddos. In the long run, they earn higher grades. They enroll in higher level academic programs. They're promoted on time and earn more credits. And then what we know is when families are engaged in their child's learning, those children graduate and go on to post-secondary opportunities. Does not necessarily mean they go to a 4-year college. They may go to a 2-year college or a trade school or an apprenticeship or a journeyman program or a specialized job training type of thing. But they know that there is learning to continue, that learning continues after high school graduation. Now, you all may be thinking, okay, but we have them as infant toddlers, or I have them as pre-K, or I have them as, newborns, or, whatever. But here's what I want you to know. For most of your families, you are their first formal school setting. And so they don't know what their job is. They don't know about family engagement. They don't know they should be participating with, in their child's learning. And so it's up to you. And I don't mean to, overwhelm you or make you think, oh my gosh. But just as Penny just said, we build the foundation that all others build on. Absolutely. When you're building that foundation for literacy, you're building that foundation for math, you're building that foundation for social and emotional skills, you're also laying the foundation for family engagement. And so it's kind of overwhelming to think that you have the ability to get those parents started on the right foot for being involved in their child's entire school career. It's daunting, but it's also exciting. So I want you to just think, and again, you can put it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself if you want to. Again, we're a small group. But what would you consider is the role of the family or the parent or the caregiver or whatever term we want to use? Some of those things that you think is kind of their job. Or maybe on a day when you're particularly overwhelmed or stressed and you go to the teacher next door and you think, that's not my job to do that. So what are some of those things that you think are definitely the responsibility or the job of the parent? Protector, provider, educator, playmate, schedule keeper. Good, Stephanie. What else? What about some of the rest of you all? What would you say are is the role or the job of the parent? Anybody else want to weigh in on something? All right. To be involved in their child's learning and life. Okay. All right. What else? Let's have one or two more. provide clothing, communication about any problems at home or change. Yes, some of that, just those basic needs, provide clothing. Someone on another training once said, just, provide meals for them or something. And Amanda said they are their child's first teacher. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. So this is based on the work of Dr. Karen Mapp, who's out of the Harvard School of Education. And she is like the leader, the guru in family engagement. And she has actually coined the term, or came up with the whatever theory of dual capacity building. And that is exactly what Ready Rosie does. We build dual capacity. So if you are sending out our videos, or if you're sharing content with your families to do those activities at home, then you are sending out content that is supporting that generation, that child that you are currently working with. If you are providing, if you use any of our family workshops or Give Me Tens, or any of our parent teacher conference tools, or any of those tools, or if you're doing any of those things on your own without Ready Rosie, you are building capacity in their parents. So you're building capacity in that generation as well. So you are building dual capacity. And that really is the purpose of family engagement, is so that you are building that capacity in both generations. And then Penny also added to be there when children are ill. Yes, and I have to say, thankfully, my husband, when my children were little, was in a flexible job. So I could just call him and say, the nurse called, they're sick, they're running a fever, you have to go pick them up because I've got 22 little friends sitting in front of me. So this is the role. These are the roles actually that Dr. Mapp has actually defined as parents. And you guys mentioned a lot of those in your explanation of what you thought was their role. They are supporters of their children. It is their job to support their children. And some of the things that you guys listed, like provide clothing, be there when they're sick, have what they need to get to school. If they are 2, then part of me supporting my 2-year-old is making sure I have the diaper bag or the bag or whatever that has the extra, or a couple of changes of clothing and extra diapers and wipes or whatever it is I'm supposed to bring for that child. But here's the thing that's part of your role. It's also your role to help parents understand that their role is going to change as their child gets older. Now, you don't have to say this part of it, but think about if I'm supporting a 2-year-old by making sure that, they have appropriate clothing if I can for the different weather changes, to make sure that I'm taking them to school every day, to make sure that I've got that diaper bag of things to leave at the center. How would I be supporting that same child when they are, say, in 3rd grade? Any ideas? Or 5th grade? Any ideas? How do you think they would be supporting that child as they get older? Right, teach the child to be responsible and grab their own backpack. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Making sure that they've got their lunch. Whether, when a child is itty bitty, I'm going to be sending the bottles. I'm going to be sending that food. But as they get older, it is my responsibility as a supporter to make sure that they either have lunch money, or I've made their lunch, or they've made their lunch. And making sure that backpack is in a place where they know to go every single day to pick up. I'm supporting them with being more independent. Absolutely. And so model critical thinking so they can be more independent. Absolutely. And I'm just glad that, no one is making me be more independent, because there are days that if I didn't have my husband to remind me, of everything I was supposed to do, or how many times I got to school and had left the thing that I was going to take to school, I would have been in big trouble. But parents need to see that the way they support their child is going to change as their child grows. It is also their responsibility to be their encourager, to build their child up, to build those goals and those aspirations in their children so that their children have good self-esteem. And I'm not talking about, building them up with unrealistic goals and things like that, but encouraging their child, saying, you can do this, you can, you've got this. Here, I'm going to support you, I'm going to help you as they grow. They are monitors. And again, this is a hard one for parents. A lot of times they think that kind of once they get their child to first grade, I don't know why first grade is the magical age, maybe because that's the age that children used to typically learn to read. But there are a lot of parents out there that think that once their child hits grade school, they're done, they're good to go. But monitoring, again, helping that parent understand that when their child is 2 or younger, I'm going to be monitoring to see what are they putting in their mouths, making sure they're not putting their fingers in the electrical sockets. I'm going to make sure I've got those little plugs in the electrical sockets. I'm going to make sure I've got the phone bumpers around the table where they're, corners sticking out and everything. But I'm not going to be modeling whether the handles on the stove, on the pots are facing outward or backwards when they're in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade in high school. I'm not going to be monitoring that stuff, but I am going to be monitoring who they're hanging out with. I am going to be monitoring their friends. I am going to be monitoring, are they where they say they're going? I am going to be monitoring, do you have homework? And if they say nope, then, am I willing to have that natural consequence if they really did and they didn't do it? But they're still going to be monitoring their child just in a different way. And parents don't understand that. They are advocates for their child, even though there are times we wish they wouldn't advocate for their child. Sometimes we wish they would back off on advocating for their child, but really and truly, that is their job. I heard the superintendent of the Los Angeles School District several years ago. Actually, I read an article where he was telling parents that they are the only one who's fighting for their child. And when I read that, I thought, well, I kind of disagree with you, superintendent of Los Angeles schools, because when I was in the classroom, I fought for every single one of my children. And I'm sure that each of you fight for every single one of your kids. But when I finally kind of got out of my ego, I thought, well, I fight for them the year I have them. Because what happens the next year or when they age out of your classroom? You're not still fighting for them. You've got a whole new batch of children that you're fighting for. That new teacher hopefully is fighting for them. And so really, their parents are the only ones who are consistently fighting for them. And even though sometimes it rubs us the wrong way or we wish they wouldn't, we need to make sure that they know that is their job, to fight for their child. Historically, and as soon as I say this, y'all will think of an example to prove me wrong, but typically in early childhood, they don't have to fight as hard for their child as they do when they get into elementary school. Somehow parents, will be in communication with their teacher and let you guys know what they don't like or what they're not happy with. But it's like when they get to school age, they think all of a sudden they don't have that right. And so it's up to us as we're building that relationship with family engagement, that they know that that is their job, to every single year advocate for their child. I skipped over models, but I think this is a hard one for parents to understand, that they are modeling their children, as are we, 24/7, from the time they wake up until the time they go to bed. And so if you have a child that when they get, when they don't get their way, when they get upset, when they get mad, or whatever, and it's not necessarily age appropriate, because there is that time, where all they know to do is to yell or scream and throw something, then more than likely that is what is being modeled at home. That when a parent gets mad or angry or frustrated, they yell or scream or throw something. And so one of the some of the research and answer videos that we have in Ready Rosie is on discipline. And there's one that I love that's called Every Behavior is a Form of Communication. And so, you know, when that child is throwing their fit, they don't have the ability to say, you know, to use the language. We also have a modeled moment, and it's also part of our Give Me 10 on social and emotional, on labeling emotions and showing parents how hard how important it is to say and model for their child, I am really angry. And so I'm going to go in that other room and I'm just going to count to 10 and model how they manage their different emotions so that children see how to appropriately handle emotions. That's also something that if you're not working on in the, you know, in the classroom when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, that is something that you can certainly start working on as well, helping them to label their emotions and then modeling for them how to handle those different emotions, because we're not born knowing how to do that. They're decision makers. Sometimes we wish they weren't decision makers. We might not always agree with the decision that they make, but they are in fact decision makers. And they are collaborators, and we're going to be talking about that over our whole 3 series as how they can be mutual partners in their child's learning. And then they're assets. And so every single one of your families brings something to the table, and it's up to us to figure out what it is they're bringing to the table. If they speak another language, they are bringing the asset of knowing 2 languages, 2 cultures. And that's a huge asset that they can bring to your program. So try to think of every family and think, what are they bringing to the table? What are they bringing to contribute to the table? Because every single family brings something. So any questions about any of those roles of the family? Were there any that you didn't think of or that surprised you? And again, you can put in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. Okay, all right. Well, then this is y'all's job, to create a welcoming and inviting environment. One of the ways you can do that, and it will also open the door for family engagement, is if you do have families that speak another language, have hello or welcome in the languages that are spoken in your center or in your classroom. If you, at the beginning of the year, as families are coming in, if you have some families that have been in your program, have them standing at the door and telling the parents good morning. Lots of ways to involve your families that way. That sends the message immediately. We value parents. You are our partners, and we even use our parents in our different settings to welcome other families. Recognize and honor all families, and then always connect family engagement to student learning. And so we're going to be talking about that as we go across the three sessions. Bottom line is, every time your families come to your center or come to anything that you offer, they need to leave a little smarter than when they walked through the door. Nobody has time for their time to be wasted. All right, so I want you to just think about what are some of the reasons, what are some of the barriers that you think keep parents from coming and participating. So again, you can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. All right, job, work schedule, time and language, good. What else? What else? Low energy. Okay, what else? Job, transportation, mental health, unsure of what to expect, not used to family engagement, not prioritizing it because they don't know why it is important to them. Yep. All right, all of those things are true. All of those things are barriers. Did not grow up with family engagement, so they might not implement it. Absolutely. But you're not going to know specifically which are the barriers for your center unless you ask. And so if you're not having 100% coming to the wonderful things that you're offering, then you need to do one of two things or one of a couple things. You need to send out a survey and ask, why aren't you coming? Or if you have those families that you've developed a good relationship with, create a parent-to-parent network or a parent task force and have them reach out to the families that don't come and don't participate in anything and ask them, hey, how come you're not coming? There was a program that I worked with and was doing training a couple years ago out in the San Francisco Bay Area. And one of the gentlemen was over their dad program. They were implementing a dad program to get more dads involved. And so he had told me he was so excited that he had set up 4 different dad cave. I don't know why he decided to call them dad cave meetings, but anyway, dad cave meetings, one each quarter. And the first one came and he advertised and he sent out flyers and he did all this and he was going to provide a light supper and he had a speaker lined up and he was so excited. It was at 6:30 in the evening. Nobody came. And so he was like, well, okay, it was the first one. We've never done anything like this before. Second quarter came, second meeting came, nobody showed up. And so he told me, he said, Teddy, I really was about to think, they don't care. They're not interested. They don't want this. And he said, I don't know what made me think of it, but he said, I reached out to one of the dads that I had a relationship with. And he said, why didn't you come to either one of my dad cave meetings? And this dad said, because it's at a horrible time. And he said, what do you mean? It's at 6:30. So the man in charge of it is thinking 6:30 is a good time. They have time to go home, do whatever they need to do and come back up. And the dad said 6:30 is a horrible time. And so the guy in charge said, ask your friends, ask the other dads, find out what time is good and I'll change it. Dad came back and said 4:30. And the director said, well, how is 4:30 a good time? And the dad said, because we can stop on our way home, do the meeting, do the program, do the whatever, and then go home and we're done, we're home. If we go home first, there's a good chance we're not going to get out again. And so this guy who was over their dad program was on the verge of just canceling the whole program on the assumption that the dads didn't care, when in fact that had nothing to do with it. And he wouldn't have known that if he hadn't have asked a dad to reach out and find out why they weren't coming. So that's the first thing you need to do, is find out from those families, why aren't you coming? Why aren't you participating? And they're going to tell you things like, I don't have childcare. It's at a bad time. I'm at work. You always offer everything at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. I don't have transportation, or I am overwhelmed and cannot take on one more thing right now. And so then once you have identified the barriers, you have to plan, brainstorm, entertain the idea, whatever you want to call it. But you've got to look at each barrier that is shared and think, can we solve that barrier? We cannot, as important as family engagement is, we cannot just say, well, they need childcare. Sorry about their bad luck. We don't have childcare. They don't have any way to get here. I mean, we're offering it. They don't have a car. They don't have any way to get here. Sorry about their bad luck. They ought to have transportation. We can't do that. We don't do that with our children. Certainly, we try to figure out how far we need to go back or how we can support or individualize or differentiate or whatever to get them where they need to be. So if a family doesn't have childcare, then can you split your staff where some of the staff is providing activities for the children while the parent ed meeting is going on? Or can you work those family ed programs so that the children are engaged in it? All of our Ready Rosie planning family event things, they're all the Ready Rosie activities. And so the children are doing the activity right there with the family. And so you're modeling for the family how to be engaged with their child, how to support different literacy or math or social and emotional skills. And the family is doing the activity right there together. So the family isn't coming and getting the information and going home and doing it. Can you offer it at drop off or pickup for those parents that have the ability to do that? Several of our programs will do one of the Give Me 10s, those 10-minute little workshops that we have at drop off. So I drop my child off, they go to their classroom, I go in the room that's designated, and I stay for an extra 10 minutes for a program, and then I'm on my way. And some programs offer it at pickup as well, because some parents can't stay at drop off, but they could come 10 minutes early to pick their child up. The nice thing, if anything good came out of the pandemic, was it forced centers to use Zoom to figure out how to communicate with their families via Zoom. So a lot of our programs will offer a program at drop off, at pickup, and they record one or the other, and they make the link, the recording available, just like Shauna does with every meeting. So that if you can't attend, you're not just out of luck. Shauna shares the recording. And so how can you address that lack of transportation and that lack of childcare? Can you, do you have a parent that you have a good relationship with that you could ask to go by, swing by and pick up that family that needs transportation to get to a meeting? I don't know what the solution is, but we have to at least start brainstorming, how can we do that? And I'm going to tell you, families have shared with me that, let's say Amanda says to a parent who says, I don't have childcare, I can't come to the meeting. And Amanda says, go ahead and bring them, they'll be fine. I mean, they'll be fine. They can just stay right by you and they're fine. So it might be okay with her. But there's always that one teacher that it's not okay with. And so while the meeting is going on and my children are crawling around on the floor acting like children, there's always that one teacher that's doing this. At my children who are rolling around on the floor. And even though you said it was okay if I brought them and they could just sit by me, that teacher is sending me the message that it is not okay. So I'm not coming back, because I don't have time to come to a meeting or a program where I'm going to be made to feel uncomfortable. So you have to think about what are the barriers that are keeping your families, and then what can you do about it? So here are some legitimate, honest feedback from families that we've gotten when we've just, talked to some of our families and said, hey, what keeps you from being involved in your child's school? I have no transportation. I don't have childcare. I don't speak the language. And so again, if you don't have a translator, if you have families that speak a language other than English or other than you have represented, you've got to brainstorm a way to see, is there another family who could translate for that parent? Are you in an area where at one of the high schools, the honor language students are always looking for community service hours? Could one of the high school students come and serve as a translator? Could an older brother or sister serve as a translator? So that you're sending the message, even if you don't speak the language, we still honor and welcome you, and we're going to do everything we can do to make sure that you understand the meeting or the program just as the other families. And I can tell you, I don't speak a second language. I barely speak Spanish. And if I had to go to a meeting or a program that was all in Spanish, I don't have the brain energy at the end of the day to watch their body language and listen for cognates to get some little snippet of where I think I can piece together what they're saying. I'm just not going to go. It's just too much work. So can you address that language barrier? We've talked about the meetings at the same time. I'm too tired. And, if we're tired, so are our families. They only contact me when there's a problem. And if we want families to be engaged, then we have to make sure that we are reaching out to them when their child is doing something that we need their help with, and when their child is doing something good. Because if every time you call me, it's to tell me how Blake got on your last nerve, or he didn't do what he was supposed to do, or whatever it is, I'm going to quit answering the phone, first of all. And I'm not going to come to anything at the school because I don't want you to confront me and tell me face to face all the problems you're having with my child. Now, if you sometimes call me and tell me what I need to, talk to Blake about, or, support you in, and you also call and tell me, he had a great day, I just wanted to let you know he had a great day or a great morning. Now I don't know. I've got a 50-50 chance. You're telling me something you need my help with, or you could be telling me something that he did that was really good. So make sure you're balancing when you're contacting families, because that directly impacts their level of participation in coming up. I don't feel welcome. Again, we have so many Ready Rosie videos that we're going to look at in one of the other sessions that you can use for icebreakers. Tell Me About It is a great interview one where you can watch it and then have them turn to someone sitting next to them, and you can say, here are the questions I want you to interview each other with. And it could be anything from, is this your first child? Or what do you know about this school, or whatever it is, just something to get parents talking to each other so that they are beginning to build that parent to parent network. The teacher's so busy, I don't want to be a bother. I hated school when I was a kid, and I'm still not comfortable in a school building. Too many bad memories. And guys, if you have African-American dads, this is a legit barrier. And you may spend the entire year working on building the relationship, because we know that African-American boys are disproportionately disciplined, suspended, expelled, whatever it is. And for many of our Black dads, school was not a happy, warm, cozy feeling place. And so we have to honor that. And then we have to try to build that relationship. And I will tell you, a lot of times that relationship is built on trust. Well, I mean, it is built on trust. All relationships are built on trust. But that relationship will take many times a long time to build. And you may not see the benefit of it, but know that you have laid the foundation for the next teacher or whatever. And then I don't know about Nebraska, but absolutely in Texas, that I don't feel safe. The deportation issue is big. Back several years ago when ICE was doing all of their raids, we saw a huge drop off in Texas with parents coming and participating, even bringing their children to school, because whether they were here legally or not was beside the point. They would not risk being detained by ICE and then, being detained until they could prove that they were here legally. And so they just like disappeared. And so again, that's a legitimate barrier. So then when we would survey teachers, here were some of the things that they said. Parents don't care enough to participate. They don't speak the same language, so they won't understand. If my families cared more, they would come. We offer a lot of things and they just don't come. My families live in poverty. They don't come to things. It's not my job. I've worked all day. I'm tired. I have a lot on my plate. I don't have time. And so we're really talking past each other. And so we've got to start acknowledging the barriers that the families are under. So just real quickly, when we are thinking, we offer a lot and they don't come, families are thinking the meetings are one-sided and I'm never asked what I think. You start a parent meeting or a home visit with, tell me what your hope is for this year for your child. That right there will boost that parent's engagement because you've just immediately shared with them, I want to know. We can't say that they are their child's first teacher and then never invite them and invite their opinion in once we have them. Typically, the message we send many times is, you're your child's first teacher, but we've got it from here. And if they're their child's first teacher, they're still their child's first teacher, and we need them in collaboration with them. I don't send anything on because my families don't understand it. And there's some families that are thinking, I'm embarrassed to admit that I can't read. So if you can send things home with minimal print, if you can send things home with icons, that's going to help that. That's one of the beauties of the Ready Rosie videos, is they don't have to be able to read. They can just watch. They don't even actually have to understand the language. They can just watch the activity going on and get the gist of what it is you want them to do. Families don't care enough to participate. They only tell me how bad my child is when I go. They don't care enough. They have the meetings at the same time, and I'm still at work at that time. So if you have regular monthly meetings that are on the same day at the same time, and you know that only 10% of your families can come, try moving that monthly meeting around. Shauna does that. We do that when we look at mapping out the times for meetings over the years. We've tried, okay, let's try nap time. Let's try this time. Let's try right after work or whatever. That's just thinking about the people that you want to come, is what, how can we do this so that more and more families can come? Families don't come. I'm ignored when I come. And so I firmly acknowledge and know that some of the things are out of your control. There are decisions and mandates at the federal level, at the state level, at the city level, at the foundation level. I mean, there are things that are out of your control that you don't have any control over. But there are things in your building, if you're a director or if you are a teacher in your classroom, that you can control, that will build that relationship, that will build that family engagement. You can make the family feel welcome. You can provide information on how to help at home. Ready Rosie modeled moments, all you have to do is just get your family signed up. And they're going to get that Monday morning playlist, whether you do anything else at all. And those are ideas that give them ideas on how to help at home. If you just share one video after a parent-teacher conference, one of the research and answer, you are providing information for how they can help at home. You can contact the families at other times when there's not a problem. You can ask the parent for their opinion. What calms your child down at home? When your child gets upset, what works at home? What does your child like to do at home? And so I'll show you, if you haven't found it already, that You Know Your Child Best questionnaire. And again, you get great information about the child, and you're also sending that message. I value you. You're your child's first teacher. You're with your child a lot more than I am. Help me learn more about your child. Value what the parent says about their child, even if in the back of your mind, you're thinking, in your dreams, he's reading Harry Potter. He doesn't even know the letters of the alphabet. You can just say, that's great. And just accept what they say. You can use that comment feature on the Ready Rosie videos to tell you what their child is able to do at home with an activity. And then you've got that information to see, is that what I'm seeing in the classroom, or is that something different? And then if possible, ask and meet the parent at convenient times for them at conferences. And I'm not saying, Saturday night at 7 o'clock, but when would be a more convenient time for a conference? And if you can shift something 15 minutes or whatever, that goes a long way in building that relationship with those families. So in closing for our session today, before I open it up for questions or comments, the thing I want you to take away from today is when families leave, whether that's a parent-teacher conference, whether that is an open house, whether that is a literacy night, whether that is a federal mandate meeting that you have to give, whatever it is that families are coming to or being asked to do, is they have got to have a clear idea, number one, of what is being taught. What are you teaching their child? What is it that's being taught? Not only through the course of the year, but on that activity. And that's why on every single one of our model moments, we have for every single parent why it's important. I mean, I legitimately could see why if I sent home red light, green light, a parent would be like, okay, that's just for fun. I don't have time to just do something for fun. We're not going to do that. But it says right there why that video is so important and all the things that one silly game supports, not only that current year, but as their child grows up. So we'll look at some of those. They also have to leave with something to help their child, some little nugget, some little tidbit, something that makes them smarter than when they walked in. Otherwise, it is not worth their time to come. And then they need to understand, if possible, what good teaching or good support looks like. And so when you share those modeled moments, those are sharing them. That's a good, that's a good interaction between a parent and a child. That's how you can do that activity. Or if you're modeling things for them to do so that they're actually seeing and not just reading and having to figure out and comprehend what that activity might look like, but they're actually seeing it through a video or through you modeling. So that's what every family should leave with. Have a clear idea of what is being taught or the purpose of an activity, something to help their child, some little nugget that they're smarter than when they walked in the door, and then kind of understand what that looks like. So before I let you guys get on with your job and what you're supposed to do, what comments or questions do you have before we sign off? Or let's have four brave people share something that maybe was new to you, something that you're gonna kind of think about or you want to remember. So have four people, and the faster those four people share, the faster you guys can log off. So what's something that you heard on Ready Rosie? Do we create our own videos to share or just use the ones that are uploaded? Right now, you have to just use the ones that we have, but we have over 1,200 videos in English and Spanish. So although a couple of years ago, and I have not tried this out and I should have, there was a director who recorded a video on YouTube and actually then put the link in her playlist that she created and shared it out that way. All right, let's have a couple people just share maybe something you heard, something you hadn't thought about, something you agree with, something you don't agree with. You're gonna, kind of think it over before the next session. And you can put it in the chat or you can share it. Stephanie said she likes the idea of having our families do a Your Child Best questionnaire to get their opinions on their child. Excellent. And I will share that next time with you guys, but you guys can also find it on your Getting Started page or under resources, under tools. And it's part of the parent-teacher conference documents. So let's have one.
I really like,
Go ahead,
go ahead, Amanda.
Okay. Well, I really like the idea of connecting with the parents, just like in general, like when there are good things going on with the child, or like with us, we also contact the participants with their attendance. So just being able to encourage them. I know that Ready Rosie has some certificates, and so I'm kind of thinking about like how to continue to use like the certificates to
I love that.
bring up that engagement as like a positive reinforcement,
I
not just
love
like
that.
hey, your attendance is low or something, you know.
Right,
that sort of
yeah.
thing.
Well, and I had, when you think, if you have 22 children, the fact of reaching out to every single parent every single week or every day is just undoable. But if you focus on 5 families a day to send a happy note home with 5 children a day, by the end of the week, you've reached out to every family. Or if you just take 5 a week, then by the end of the month, you've reached out to every family. And there was a survey done with children in public school, but primary, early child, pre-K and kindergarten for sure. They surveyed, I don't know how many thousands of parents, and they said over like 60% of the parents said they only heard from the school when there was something going on wrong with their child. And guys, that is not right. And then we wonder why parents don't support us, So
Teddy, I really like the message of like letting they should leave learning something. And I like that a lot of times because I hear a lot of programs when we talk about Ready Rosie, they say, well, it's just another video. It's just another video. They're probably just deleting it. They're not even looking at it. But when it's introduced to families, if it could be introduced as to, I'm going to, I'm, as your child's teacher, going to send you videos too that I want to share, I want you to share learning experiences with them in such an easy way. And these are reasons why these are so important, on gross motor skills or fine motor skills or anything like that. Because a lot of times if a video comes and they watch it and they don't go scroll down to see why this is important, sometimes just that message to them to understand some of the basics of Ready Rosie and why the teacher's doing that is a really important piece of that family engagement.
Exactly. And I think anytime you can share a Ready Rosie video in any meeting or whatever, whether it's Ready Rosie directed or not, just, a meeting. And you say every single one of our videos is supporting something your child is learning, then the parents know up front, okay, these aren't just, willy-nilly silly things to send home. And Penny, added that it should be more positive than negative, just as we do with children. And Penny, I think that's a perfect thing to end with. If we would think of interacting with our families and growing our families the same way as we do with interacting with our children and building their self-esteem and building their social and emotional skills and all of that, and meeting our families where they are, just like we do our children, then your family engagement is going to fall into place. So thank you guys for joining. On our next session, we're going to delve a little bit deeper, and I really appreciate your time. I know you guys are busy and tired and overwhelmed and all of those things, and so I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to learn more additionally how you can really reach out and support your family. So have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye. Thank you, Teddy.
Absolutely.